Light a deep, hello everyone. After countless storms and endless waiting, James and Diep are finally back together. Their love has survived separation, betrayal, and even silence, but now comes the question that makes every heart tremble. Will they truly walk hand in hand into a grand wedding, sealing their love forever? The future stands before them, uncertain yet full of hope, where promises may finally turn into vows. The morning rain poured down heavily over the countryside, filling the air with the earthy scent of wet soil and fresh leaves. Diep sat inside with little Nee, a bright-eyed girl of 3, keeping her close and warm. They spent the morning in small, tender routines, picking vegetables from the garden, feeding the chickens, cooking rice, and sharing simple laughter. To Diep, these quiet moments carried a gentle peace, though deep inside her heart lingered a longing for someone who was far away. James had called her earlier, his voice warm but distant, telling her he could not return to Vietnam for a few more days because of paperwork and business. Diep believed him, though her heart sank a little at the thought of waiting longer. What she did not know was that James had already landed at Noi Bai Airport that very morning. He had deliberately hidden the truth because he wanted to surprise her. On his way from the airport, rain splashing against the car windows, James stopped at a small clothing store. He carefully chose tiny dresses and shirts for a little girl, imagining how bright Nee's face would become when she saw them. He added a soft hat, practical yet charming, then carried on to a flower stall by the roadside. There he picked a bouquet of fresh blooms, vivid, alive, and full of promise, just like the love he wished to give Diep. By the time he reached her home, the sky was still heavy with rain. Diep was just finishing lunch with Nee when James appeared at the door, drenched but smiling, his arms full of gifts. At first, Diep was too shocked to move. He had told her he would be away for days, and now he stood before her. The little girl squealed with delight when James knelt down, handing her the clothes and hat. Her innocent joy filled the room, making the rainy day feel brighter. Diep's eyes softened, though she tried to hide her tears. She had missed him deeply, and the thought that he had gone out of his way to surprise her made her heart tremble. They gathered inside together, sharing fruit, laughing, and speaking of ordinary things. Yet every moment carried a quiet tenderness. In the simplicity of that rainy afternoon, it almost felt like they were already a family. But beneath the warmth, another question lingered: what future awaited them? James was a man of wealth and power, a CEO who once carried the weight of scandal and betrayal. Diep was a woman of the countryside, humble, grounded, and unpretentious. They had been torn apart before, by storms of business rivalries and shadows from the past. Now they were back together, stronger than ever, but would that strength carry them to the altar of a grand wedding? James held her hand gently, his voice low but full of sincerity. Diep, I came back not only because I missed you, but because I want us to walk forward. No matter what storms come, I want the world to know that you are mine. Her heart raced. A big wedding would mean stepping into his world completely, facing the judgment of society, the whispers of rivals, and the expectations of his powerful family. Diep hesitated, torn between love and fear. Yet when she looked into James's eyes, she saw not just ambition, but devotion. Her heart raced. A big wedding would mean stepping into his world completely, facing the judgment of society, the whispers of rivals, and the expectations of his powerful family. Diep hesitated, torn between love and fear. Yet when she looked into James's eyes, she saw not just ambition, but devotion. Outside, the rain softened, and through the open window came the faint scent of blossoms. Little Nee laughed in the background, holding the new hat James had bought her. In that moment, Diep realized that happiness did not always lie in the size of a wedding, but in the courage of two hearts standing together. Still, the question remained, would they dare to make it big, to celebrate their love before the world, or would they choose a quiet promise only for themselves? And as the rain eased into silence, James and Diep held each other, knowing that their answer would shape the rest of their lives. The evening drew close, and the rain had slowed into a gentle drizzle. Inside the small countryside house, the glow of a single lamp filled the room with warmth. James sat quietly at the wooden table, watching Diep move gracefully as she cleared the dishes. Her hands, calloused yet delicate, told the story of a life rooted in the soil. He admired her strength, so different from the polished, ambitious world he came from. Nia had fallen asleep after playing with her new clothes, her small body curled up in a blanket. The peaceful sight made James's heart soften even more. For a moment, he let himself imagine a future where this was his everyday life, Diep by his side, a child's laughter in the house, the simplicity of love without masks or business wars. James, Diep finally spoke, breaking his thoughts. She sat across from him, her eyes searching. "Why did you really come back early? Not just to surprise me, right?" James leaned forward, his expression serious now. "You're right. It wasn't only for the surprise. There's trouble again with the company. The investors, some of them are pulling out. I didn't want to tell you over the phone. I wanted to see you, to hold you, before facing it all." Diep's chest tightened. She remembered the last time his world had collapsed, betrayals, scandals, endless pressure that almost broke him. Yet here he was, still strong, still carrying everything alone. She reached out and took his hand, her voice steady. "You don't have to fight by yourself anymore. I'm here. James, whatever storm comes, I'll stand with you." Diep's chest tightened. She remembered the last time his world had collapsed, betrayals, scandals, endless pressure that almost broke him. Yet here he was, still strong, still carrying everything alone. She reached out and took his hand, her voice steady. "You don't have to fight by yourself anymore. I'm here. James, whatever storm comes, I'll stand with you." Her words sank deep into him, more comforting than anything wealth could buy. He squeezed her hand gently, feeling his own resolve harden. "Diep, I want us to build something bigger than a company. I want a life with you, a wedding not small, not hidden, a wedding where everyone sees us together. Will you stand with me, no matter what people say?" The question hung in the air. Diep lowered her gaze, torn between love and fear. A grand wedding meant stepping fully into his complicated world. She thought of whispers, of people judging her simple rotes, of rivals who might use her against him. But she also thought of how her heart beat faster when he was near, how she longed for a place beside him, without hesitation or shame. Finally, she looked up. Her eyes were damp, but her voice was clear. "James, I don't need a big wedding to know I belong with you. But if a big wedding is what it takes to show the world we're unbreakable, then yes, I'll do it." James exhaled, a rare smile lighting his face. He leaned across the table and pulled her into his arms. For the first time in a long time, he felt hope rising again, not just for his business, but for a life of love that even storms could not erase. Yet outside, beyond the peaceful sound of rain, shadows still gathered. Rivals whispered in the dark, old wounds waited to resurface. And not everyone would celebrate their union. Their love had returned, their hearts had chosen each other, but the true test was only beginning. The next morning, sunlight finally broke through the clouds. The fields outside glittered with dew, and the air smelled fresh after the storm. James woke early, not to the buzz of his phone or the pressure of business meetings, but to the soft sound of Diep humming in the kitchen. It was a melody as gentle as the morning itself, carrying a sweetness that money could never buy. He stepped quietly to the doorway and watched her. She was cutting fresh vegetables, her hair loosely tied, her simple dress glowing in the golden light. For a man who had spent his life surrounded by glass towers, suits, and cold negotiations, this moment felt like a treasure. "Good morning," James said softly. Diep turned, startled, but her lips curved into a shy smile. "You should rest more. You came home so late last night." "I've rested enough," he replied, walking closer. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin gently on her shoulder. "I don't want to waste a single morning with you." Diep laughed quietly, though her cheeks flushed with warmth. "You speak like you've been reading too many love stories. Maybe I finally learned one," James teased, but his voice soon softened. "Or maybe you are the story I was searching for all this time." Before Diep could respond, his phone buzzed sharply on the table. The sound cut through the calm air like a blade. James's smile faded as he glanced at the screen messages from his assistant. "Urgent." "Is it bad news?" Diep asked, her eyes full of concern. James hesitated. He didn't want to break the peace of the morning, but he also couldn't lie. "It's about John," he finally admitted, "the man who betrayed me before. He's back, and he's making moves. Again, investors are nervous. If I can't stop him, the company might fall apart." The name alone sent a chill through Diep. She remembered the pain James had endured, the sleepless nights, the weight he carried alone. Stepping closer, she took his hand firmly. "Then you won't fight him alone this time. I'll stand with you, James, whatever comes. I'll be here." Her words lit a fire inside him. He kissed her forehead, whispering, "That's all I need." But even as their hearts clung to each other, the storm was already forming. In the city, John was weaving his web again, determined to destroy James not just in business but in life itself. And when he learned about Diep, his eyes turned darker with envy. For now, James and Diep held onto the fragile peace of the morning. They cooked, ate together, and even walked through the wet fields with Nee, laughing like a small family. Yet deep inside, they both knew the battle ahead would test not only James's strength, but the very bond of love they had just found again. The question of a wedding remained in the air like a promise and a challenge. Would they walk proudly into the light, hand in hand before the world, or would the shadows pull them apart once more? Love is not only about grand gestures or beautiful weddings. It is about the courage to stand together when storms arrive. James and Diep remind us that true strength in a relationship comes not from wealth, power, or appearances, but from loyalty and trust. When challenges appear, whether in business, family, or life itself, partners must choose to fight alone or to walk side by side. Diep chose to hold James's hand even when the future looked uncertain. And James chose to see Diep not as someone beneath him, but as his equal, his anchor, and his hope.